Welcome back, everybody, to the New Generation Sobriety podcast. Today, we're joined by Garet McLendon. I'll throw his tag right above my head here. Do you want to tell everybody a little bit about yourself, for those who don't know you?
My name is Garet McLendon. I live out in Santa Clarita in the Los Angeles area. My sobriety date's 3/17/2013. I'm just grateful to be alive and being able to do stuff like this.
So that makes you 12 years sober now?
Yeah, 12 years.
Congratulations.
I can't take the 13 yet. I want to. I'm 12
Yeah,
years,
yeah,
12 years and it's really like, it's a journey. It's a lifelong thing of change. And, especially because of the holidays and all this stuff. And sort of
yeah.
like, I took like a little bit of time, just to spend with the kids and doing some stuff. And man, like you sit there and it's a reflection and it's really never about all the stuff that you have, man. It's priceless.
Like, one of the things for me, one of my favorite gifts is looking back and, like, seeing how, like, how in those tough times when we felt like there was nothing else except for the drink or the drug or whatever we were running to. You look back now that we're a couple years in or whatever, and you see like how like it's just a gift to look back and see how things were working and like how I'm a Christian and I believe in like God working in my life, and like it's crazy to look back and see how like when I was running in the full opposite direction, like he was still had his hand on me, right? Because
Mm.
I'm sure you can relate. There's many nights where like we shouldn't have woke up, or
Yeah.
like we're lucky to be alive.
I,
And
I I definitely and speaking about that, like especially because I didn't come into the I mean, like, as much as I remember, like, getting loaded in the bathroom at my mom's house, and she had like this little ceramic porcelain little, serenity prayer, like on a scroll, that was on top of the counter, and the trailer. And I remember sitting there getting loaded and reading that and reading that and reading that. And then I also remember being locked up inside jails and stuff like that, and somehow you end up with like a little pamphlet, or you end up with something and I have this serenity prayer on it. And and like, I remember getting sober and then talking about God and the relationship with God and this prayer and meditation, and like none of that. Like I was just trying to work on not getting loaded and not drinking. And
yeah,
then, as the time, like they talk about the journey, like in time, man, like I got hang around with these people whose conception of God, perception of God was so big and so
yeah,
huge, and like it just started got me. And and like you want that, man. I really think like the God centeredness and the spirituality and stuff in this program that comes, in time. And it's not something that we all get immediately,
no,
but I'm gonna tell you, it's one of the things that keeps you here, and it keeps you here with this clear conscience and like this message from your head to your heart, man, of this being so like it's so pure, man.
yeah,
And now as the more time I get, the more like that seeking and that practice is something that like I don't go a day without, like
yeah,
I wake up like my they talk about like morning routines, like my morning routines when I was in prison and jail, and in my disease is like it was just like one more drink or hit or fix, one more drink, hit or fix, or like and inside jail it was just like a routine of just working out, working out, and just this,
yeah,
in the yard. And now I get this morning routine now that like and I used to hear like my old timers and stuff, and other people talk about this God and this spirituality, and like and I always loved listening that when people are like when they're like it's so much better, to start like early on, to start developing and seeking that God. That way, when something happens in your life, that you're not sitting there, like when some emotional or disturbance or something comes your way, that you're not sitting there at that time trying to find a God that that you should have been searching for. And so, like these big things, of death of my parents, or relationships, or jobs, and money and insecurities come along, and like really, the first time that you get hit with that stuff, it's really big,
hmm
and
especially in sobriety,
and
right? Like,
especially in sobriety, and especially like the first, we all come across those first here, we all come across those first, and it's just a matter of when,
yeah,
and I came across these first, and like you're unprepared in a way, but the one thing that did prepare me is I did have that relationship with God. And they always say that one thing that's going to stop you from taking that drink, hit or fix, it's really hard to say that I'm able or strong enough to call somebody when I'm in that predicament, or that I'm be 24/7 being in this buddy system. And it's like that time alone that I get, and that time alone is I practice that time alone in the mornings, with with the spiritual disciplines they talk about through 86 through 88. And I do some, I do some prayer and meditation, and I get these books. And the number one thing is I do a gratitude list, and that sort of centers me in the day that I'm in. So I'm able to do stuff like this, and then I'm able to walk out in the world knowing that there is no big deals. That not everything's happening to me, that everything's happening for me.
Yeah,
So
that's
just because
amazing.
things ain't going my way, or things ain't going, like I'm no longer the director of my life. I'm just like a person walking through, and being able to accept everything that's happening for me, and that perception change is another really big thing, man, because when I first got here, and I take everything so personal,
Yeah, like, do you feel like before you came into sobriety, like, were you kind of at that stage where a lot of us were, like, I was for sure, where I'm kind of like in that victim mentality sort of,
Yeah, of course, absolutely.
and then
Yeah.
you feel like as soon as like you got sober and you found that, right, like your perception changed, and like I can relate with that. Like before, like when I finally surrendered, I was sitting in that detox center, and like it all clicked in my head, right? At 17 years old, I'm looking out the window, like I shouldn't be here, and then I'm like, I start thinking about God and everything, right? And I grew up Catholic, so I kind of resented it. I didn't really want much to do with it. I believed in God. I'd never killed anybody, so I thought I was going to go to heaven. I thought that
Mm,
was good enough, right?
mm.
And I had good intentions. I didn't like lying. I felt bad. So I thought I was, a good
Good.
person. I
I'm
thought I was all
on the
good.
right path.
But no, I was sitting there and I'm like, start thinking like, if I die right now, like based off of Catholicism, like I'm going to hell. Like even though I'm sorry for everything that I did, I've made amends, I've apologized. These people forgive me. They want to help me. They're supporting me. Like I just couldn't forgive myself, right? And the second like I started thinking all this, like God spoke to me for the first time, and like you said, that perception change. Like in that moment, everything changed in my head, and I was like, that mental obsession was lifted, and
I
I
like that perception that you talk about, because sometimes what I hear when people talk about that, and I can see, and listening to you talk and I remember being in my disease, and I remember being in that way, and I remember like, what's happening is I remember that, you sort of get this reflection as you get sober. And like, I remember sitting there, like I had to turn myself, I had a sober, in which I never been to jails and institutions, on a sober breath,
yeah,
and I turned myself in, and I got arrested one more time, and I go inside this, holding tank. And I remember sitting there in that holding tank on that concrete bench, on that, sitting there, and having a moment of reflection. And this is after me being to, like, a couple different treatment centers, and, and thinking that maybe I have this program and this and that. And I remember sitting there, and man, and that morbid reflection of how this wasn't the life I wanted to, live anymore. And
yeah,
how that deep down honest relation, that deep down honest discussion with myself, with me, and like, damn, man, like this is not going to work for me. And I still got out, and I still went about, and I still went out into my disease off that. So even though I sat there, and I swore, like, man, like I was gonna be different, I'm gonna do right and all this stuff, and I sat there in this deep reflection of like how God saved me through all this, He sent me all this grace through all the things I've been, going through, and being on the streets, and being homeless, and being in prison, and doing all this stuff, man, like that. You get this, like, just gratitude, man. But I got sober, and I started, working, and a lot of it's coming through like the step work, and you get this reflection, man, and like, damn, God's been with me this whole time.
yeah,
And that's the whole thing, is like God's always been with me, and that really reflects it for like now, like as I get more time, and I get down into this, relationship, and seeking that relationship. I never got it. I never got it. It's constant, like every year, the beginning of the year, man, it seems like I gotta move something around, because that old saying comes into place: the sobriety of yesterday doesn't keep me sober today,
yeah.
and so I gotta come in here, and I gotta do some change, and I got to, and I have to, whether it's a different book in the morning, or
It's good change today versus like
it's
before, right?
positive, and I think it's necessary, because I think we come in here too, and after a while we get content on, on this little way of life, and that gets boring, because like we get into this, we get stuck into this little motion of life,
That's where it gets dangerous,
and it,
right?
and it gets dangerous, and like maybe the same meetings, and the same people, not too much change. And so like for me, I like to keep it really changed up. Not in a bigger sense, but like just a
Just
different
keep your
Monday
brain
night meeting,
entertained,
a
right? You
different
know,
Thursday night meeting. Yeah, just
keep everything different, you know,
keep
and
everything different, man.
like when everything starts to, when we start to get wrapped up in like this, we get content, right?
Mhm.
And in this way of life of like you said, same meetings, same people, same, that's where it gets dangerous. And like I can really relate with that. Like I, around my 2 years of sobriety, I moved out of my parents' house, got a job in the union, started working for like some scaffolding company, and so I was living in like on my own in London. And like I just, the meetings, like it's only an hour from my hometown, but the meetings from London versus where I was living were like way different. Like
Mm.
there's a guy at the, like where I went, we all sat in a circle. Everybody got to share every meeting. Like just keep your shares to a respectful, like, like there's a lot of people here. We don't want to be here all night. So just keep it to like 3 to 5 minutes. But like these meetings I went to in London, like I went to three of them and I didn't get to share once. Like
Mm.
you had to raise your hand and you had to get called on. And like some guy at the front's like sharing after everybody shares. He was like, I know it's just, it was just different, and I made
Yeah.
excuses, right? And I was like, oh, I don't like this meeting. I'll just go to the meetings in Chatham on the weekend.
Mm.
And then I never, on the weekend, I was always seeing the girlfriend or the friend, right? And started getting content and getting comfortable. And I never picked up another drink, but I relapsed hard on like slot machines, man. I blew $112,000 in 8 months, and I wagered like upwards of 5 million on one account.
Mm.
Like, and when I saw these numbers, I like threw up, right? Because
Nice.
like there's days like
Yeah.
I and like the point is like I did everything in that moment like very quickly, like from getting disconnected. For me, the opposite of addiction is connection. I know that's cliche, but that is one of the things that I live by, because like the second I get disconnected, I start to reach for
Yeah,
something else,
absolutely.
right? And it might not be something like that's going to ruin my life right away, but it's just a matter of time before I reach for that substance or that drink again, right? And like when I was gambling, I did everything that I did when I was drinking, but like worse. Like I was lying, stealing, doing everything to fuel my addiction. Like I just like that you said that. Like when we get content in that lifestyle, like you got to like start to switch things up, like whether that's a different meeting or like, you know, go to an out of town meeting, go
Mhm.
to an online meeting, or like just meet new people. Like,
Let's change it, man.
yeah.
You got the rotation of change, man. And I gotta stay in that rotation of change. And like just like you go to meetings, and then like after a while you go to a different set of meetings, and then you know, then you go to like a different set of meetings, and then you go to a
Hmm.
different set of meetings,
Meet new people, right?
and
Because
then
like,
meet new people, go to new panels. You know, just get into this. It's like the same, but it's different. You know.
yeah, there was my the guy I'm here with, Ryan, had a guy on his show last night, and he said, I think he said, there's, I really liked what he said. He's like, there's somebody like if you think that, you know, like you just want to keep going to that same meeting every day because you're comfortable and like it's easy, right? Just keep it in the back of your mind, like there's somebody out there that's like waiting to meet you, to relate with you, and
Mm.
like to learn, and like, you know what I mean? Like someone's waiting to hear what you have to say. So like even if you're just like when I walk down the road, man, like in big cities like this, like I'll just, we've like our Uber driver, we found out he was coming up on 9 years sober. Like a guy that like I stopped to help somebody on the road, and like he ended up being a couple years sober. Like it's just, you just, small talk, it's small world. Like everybody's going through something, and like to switch it up, like is definitely, I just really like that you said that, because it is dangerous when we get content.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I was like, as you were talking, I wanted to ask you, like, in your opinion, what do you think it was harder to do, to get sober or to stay sober? Like,
Ooh, that's a good question. I think there's two different aspects in that, to getting sober and staying sober. Like we always, for all of us, for many, many years, I always wanted to get sober, you
yeah.
know, and for and for a good, you know, 12, 13 years of my life, that's what I did is I went and got sober.
Did you get little like stints of sobriety? And
I did because I get arrested one more time. I go, and so like you know, I go into the system. You know, I'd be 100%.
so
I just,
could you tell us a little bit about like what that looked like? Was it like
yeah.
you were kind of ready to surrender, and then you would have to like get
I'll say
arrested?
that my life, the way that I grew up and everything that was in it, like I was just destined to be, like it was like everything was shaping me to be, you know, the drugs, the streets, you know,
You were
gangs
raised
and
here in
all this
LA?
stuff. No, I was raised in the outskirts of the San, like of Antelope Valley,
Okay.
which was it's north of here. It's
Okay.
probably not as, I mean, it's still, you know, every city has a heart, you know,
Mm-hmm.
that piece, you know, and I ran around on these streets, and like I got to jail, and like I didn't think, like I never thought about like getting sober. For many years I didn't like this walk of life didn't exist until like way later on. Like I was content, running, going out there and going full bore for that, 30 to 45 days on the streets and just totally just like, doing as much drugs as possible and just like just draining myself mentally, spiritually, and physically.
So like you weren't afraid of jail or
I
anything.
wasn't afraid of going to prison. And a lot of times I tell people I'm prison preserved.
Don't they call that like
Thank God I went to jail and I
yeah.
went to prisons because in there I ate well, I slept, I worked out, and it saved me. And it's probably why like I'm in a lot of it. And that's that perception change that you
Yeah.
get to learn here and you see here. And I thank God, I like, Dan, like he really saved me
Mm-hmm.
I put myself in this predicament. So I get arrested for something stupid. I'm a I'm a high control, parolee, and so they find like a knife, in the car that was pulled over. I get a year flat. They come to a house and they find something and it'd be like boom, a year flat violation. I was just like for a minute, for a couple of years, it was just like a year flat violation, just for me being in a place, where I shouldn't have been.
Yeah.
And I was up to no good anyways, and so like, and it just like it just like I go inside and like it wasn't until like later on inside the system that I sort of used and stuff like that.
So did your addiction kind of like, do you think it got worse
My
when you were in
disease
jail?
got arrested with me every time that because mentally, I think I get busted, and mentally, you have to prepare yourself where you're going. And I knew and after you do jail time for a couple of times, I just prepared myself. I just emotionally cut myself off to the outside world
Mm-hmm.
and just focus on being institutionalized.
Yeah.
And I put all my full effort. I really didn't want to contact with nobody. I didn't really like. I literally put myself inside inside the institutions I was at, and I lived there. And like I didn't worry about nothing going on out there, man. Like if my kid's mom or something came to visit me, I just be like, I'm done. We're cool. Just let me do my time. And then I get out and it's like I go in there and clear and sober mind. I'm writing all these letters of how I'm going to change, how it's going to be different, because I really wanted a better life. And it seemed like the disease would be arrested long enough with me to when what happened. Every time just before I paroled, man, like I knew
Parole's when you get out, right?
parole is when you get released, man. And I knew, like my body knew, like it's something my mind knew,
Something's
my
gonna
body knew,
happen.
like something's happening. Like my body could just feel it.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna tell you, I was weak every time I got out, man. I was just so weak. I got out, man, and like I never had that power to say no. I never I try to make it to the parole office to check in, but like I immediately, man, that first drink, I'd be like, alcohol's not my problem. And I take it, and I take a drink. I smoke, some weed, and I stay away. And I think, these are acceptable. I'm able to do this.
What was your DOC?
Everything,
Everything?
man. Like I was out there, I was a garbage can, dude.
I like to
Because
say my DOC is more. Like
it's
anything-
more,
if I like-
whatever you got and whatever we can
Yeah.
hit at this time. And I take that drink as soon as I paroled. I celebrate with a 40 or 22 ounce, or I smoke a little bit of a joint that night, because because things, they seem acceptable, and I'm gonna tell you, those are just the gateways for me.
Like
And every
right
time
back then.
and it was just a matter of a couple of days or a week, and I go right into it, man. And I would just be full blown. And then like, once the disease takes over, man, once I get that little piece or taste inside me, like I'm irritable, restless, and discontent, man. The moment I get out, man, and just before I get out, I'm irritable, restless, and discontent, because like my body seems like it knows the routine that when I get out, I'm gonna put something in my system, and like it just like, man, like, everything's sort of bugging me until I do, and it puts my mind at ease. And when I got out, man, I just put my mind at ease, and I take that drink and I take that drug, and then the next day I know I'm slamming heroin and meth, and I'm out there on the streets, and I'm perfectly content, just like, man, I just want to be left alone. And I knew, and I could see that, and I could see that tape. They talk about that tape out, man, and I knew exactly what was going on, and I knew it, man. Like I knew as I was getting loaded or taking that drink, that I knew exactly. I didn't know when, but I knew exactly that, man, that I'm going right back in.
Yeah. And do you think, like, now that you're sober, have you kind of been able to pinpoint what like you think that was, that feeling that was bringing you
I don't
to?
try to pinpoint
No?
nothing, man. I don't try to. I just know that's that disease they talk about. That's that
Yeah.
when you talk about that in the book, man. They say drink or no drink, drug or no drug, house or no house. Like it doesn't matter. Like that's that addiction part. That's
The
that. That's
disease
that
wants us
disease
dead,
of the
right?
mind. It's in the. That's why they're talking about not the body, man. It's in the mind, and it's just that obsession of the mind. I started obsessing over way before I got out.
Hmm.
Like weeks before I got out, my mind would start obsessing it, man, and then and it's just a matter of time, man, before it just boom, boom, and it feeds.
Yeah, it's like they say, I'm sure you've heard this, they say the drink or the drug is only like, was it 5 or 10% of the problem?
Yeah,
The thinking's the,
against the rest, yeah.
and like,
But another thing is too is also I'm not you're not totally in control of all your emotions and the way your feelings and all the stuff you're going through,
oh, for
and
sure.
so like man, like I'm like it's cool, but like I have I'm not working, all this stuff, you get hit with life out there and responsibilities, and for a person who's not used to none of that stuff, man. Like that hits, man. And what do I do? My only solution every time I got out, man. And then they talk about learning a new way to live. Like my only solution was to drink and use. My only solution to any problem, any walks of life, or just for living, period, was to drink and use, man. And now I had to come and I had to come through and I had to learn this. I had to learn to be able to walk through all these emotional and responsibilities and just know that like being uncomfortable inside the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous or in recovery period is a natural thing. It's all right to be uncomfortable.
It's
It's
honestly a
all
good
right.
thing,
It's
right?
all right to be able to grow through what you go through. It's all right to be here and just, and just to be able to be present at times, because like that, like life hits hard.
For
Life
sure.
hits hard, man, and like, and thank goodness, and bringing it back into full circle. Thank God that they say that the only thing that's going to stop you from taking that first drink, hit or fix, is that relationship with God, and that's why it's very important that at a very early stages of your recovery that we start doing that searching and that seeking for that higher power, and and that's not for everyone, but like for a person like me, like you see later on in life when those bigger things happen in your life, how like that's like your go-to. It's a go-to. When I walked through like the death of my dad and my mom, like it was just like God was present in my life, and God didn't let me fall down, or he didn't let me trip. He didn't let me. He put the people into my life that needed to be in my life to hold me up and support me and to just walk through this stuff, man. Because at the end of the day, it's about and that's another thing about what it teaches here is that the relationship you have with yourself. And I had to learn, man. Like I had to learn. It's one thing to be institution, to be, and be into some single cell status and living and having that relationship way of living with yourself, but to be able to live with just who you are and what you're doing, like living with the person you are, man. That's that relationship, man. That's where like the step work and getting all this stuff out, man, and having to do this step work, man, to live comfortably and clean and serene in the body that you're in, to
Yeah.
be able to go anywhere and just be comfortable, to be able to just like it, having a bad day and you're still treating people good,
Yeah.
to be able to, have something happen that's, traumatic, or have somebody else, and being able to have, to have the ability to walk them through it, you
Yeah.
know?
Like the fruits of life that like they
Hmm.
talk about, right? Like to be able, like when people see those, like those fruits, even
Hmm.
when you're having a bad day, right? Like even when you're having a bad day, you still, like you said, put people before yourself. You still, do these things. You're still able to be present. You're still, um, and yeah, like you put that in a really good perspective. One thing I want to ask you too
Yeah.
is like, just go back a little bit. Like, what was the longest bid that you did? Like,
3 years, three with 80,
does that mean 3 years, 80 days?
years, 80%. And that was this
What
like
is
a
that? What is the
couple,
80%?
3 years. 80% is the amount of time out of that 3 years you do. And it usually like you got half time and then you got 80%. And it's just the amount of time that you do. Like, and then all my violations, I did 3 years, year flat. I started, 16 with HAP, so lots of different time. And and another like thing right now is now I go inside these jails and these institutions and I carry a message inside behind the walls and stuff, to these guys. And it's great. It's one of the greatest feelings ever, man. And,
It's one of those gifts of sobriety,
and it's
right?
like, it's those gifts, dude. And,
Because if you weren't sober, right, like Garrett wouldn't be able to go into these
yeah,
institutions and be an
yeah,
example, be a light for these
right,
people, right?
yeah,
Because some of these people are like in your shoes where you were at one point, right? Where you're like,
exactly.
maybe they're just about to get out in 2 weeks, and
Yeah.
they're sober and they're thinking, oh, I can't wait to get a 60 when I get out, right? And
Hmm.
you're like, you get to go in there and be like, man, I did the same thing, and every time it led me right back to the streets and
Yeah.
right, like, you know what I mean? And that's just one of those gifts that like, I don't know, like they say the promises and the traditions, all these things are gonna come true, right? And like when you first get there, you don't believe it.
No, I believe
You
none
start
of it.
reading these things on the wall, and you're like,
Not me.
yeah, no, for me,
Yeah.
no. Like, but then you start putting the work in, and you can stay consistent with yourself. Like you said, you stay present in the moment because like it's a work in progress for me, man. I'm 3 years in, and
Yeah.
like we started off saying in the beginning, like that's a nanosecond. Like
Yeah.
that's old timers will tell me that. I'll be like, yeah, I've been around for like a couple years now, and they're like, oh, that's nothing. And I'm like, what do you mean? It
It's
feels
a
like it's
good
been
start.
forever. It's been forever. What do you mean?
The
Yeah.
first 5 years were my first 5 years inside the program, and still to this day, because of the footwork and the action that they talk about in this program, is like I haven't let up. I haven't let up on the service work inside that. Behind the whether it's secretary in a meeting and being of service in ways, and this work here really keeps my mind at ease, and it keeps me focused on
Yeah.
positive side of stuff, and it gets me into meeting and developing new relationships with people, and it just keeps you, and it really keeps it so like it's not so plain and just like, oh,
Yeah.
another meeting. Like it really keeps me going and into this like this just like, damn, I want it. Like it's still to this day, like I want it, man. And that's a very big thing, is like after time, after 3 years, after 5 years, after 7, after 10, after 12, like you still got to have that drive. Like you still got to make that decision. Like you still, like you still, they say, and another thing I heard recently too is just because you're busy in Alcoholics Anonymous doesn't mean that you're surrendered and all that stuff too. Like, that doesn't mean that, some people are so busy that they're running from their self. And so it's time to you have to learn that balance between of dealing with life and walking through stuff and still showing up for Alcoholics Anonymous, and being of
Yeah.
service, like
And
it, you know.
like you said earlier too, like being able to like, some people are so busy that they're running from themselves. It made me think of when you said you were talking about just being present in the moment, being like for me, like when I was in my active addiction, it was like, and my parents would point it out to me, and I didn't think there was anything wrong with it, but like they were like, do you always have to be with somebody or going like somewhere? And I'm like just because I couldn't be alone
Yeah.
in my head, and like that's why rehab, detox, and all these things were so like hard for me. I tell people that like, yes, I was withdrawing from alcohol and drugs and gambling and stuff, like, but I was like second on the list was from my phone,
Mm.
like technology, like like
True.
being without your
True.
phone or a TV
Yeah.
or without like a podcast to listen to or people to talk to, really. Like when you're just in a room in rehab, like at or anywhere, like you're in a room by your alone with yourself, right? Like you were
Yeah.
talking
You
about
have to
that,
be
and
comfortable. You have to be
being
comfortable with the
comfortable, right?
person you are. Yeah.
Yeah, and like that took a lot of time for me,
Mhm.
man. Like even a year into sobriety, I'm still like doing 2 meetings a day or whatever, like as many as I possibly
Yeah.
can get to, and then like
I'm still with 12 years doing sometimes 2 meetings a
yeah, like I
day.
do too.
Yeah.
Like I go on little spurts where like I'll go to find out 2 meetings a day for a while. Like I'm not working right now because of my back. I got
Mhm.
bulging discs and stuff, so I can't work. So I'm doing a lot of like church fellowship meetings. Like I'm staying so connected because like I crave that connection. Like you said, like when that mental obsession was lifted from me, and by the grace of God, it was. It's almost like that obsession, like I don't know how to say this. It didn't like leave me, but it switched. It's switched from being obsessed with like the next high or the next drunk or the next bet to like I want to learn more about this, and I want to help
Mhm.
the next person, and I want to be an example for somebody, and I want to like if I'm gonna do this, I want to do it all the way, right? Like I'm not just gonna I'm gonna get sober for a couple months, and then like I'm not trying to mess around. Like
Yeah.
I want to get
It's a due diligence, and I like, there's some, and it talks about in our book, man. And the thing is that it takes time.
Yeah.
And it just takes time of us being here. And what it is that I think that a lot of times that we complicate it and we think and we want to do too much too fast, and and we think we got it, but it's this thing they talk about, and it's like experience and self-knowledge. And they have this breakdown to where like it's like these two guys, and they want to learn about sex, and this one guy is like, oh, the one guy is like, I'm gonna do self-knowledge about sex education. Like I'm gonna go into the libraries and I'm gonna ask as many people as I can. I'm gonna ask them everything about them having an orgasm and all this stuff in sex. And then this other guy, he's like, all right, cool. Then I'm gonna go for the experience. I'm gonna go have as many as I can, and then we'll meet back here in a month and we'll let it know how it went, And then in a month, these guys meet up, and this guy's talking to him, and this guy's like, yeah, man, he has a whole essay, and he has a whole like whiteboard line, and like he can tell you, and it sounds so good, and all this stuff, man, about how an orgasm should be. And then you have this brother, and he just came in, and what he talks about is because he had an orgasm, so he's able to talk about his experience. And so what it is like that what we got here in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, and all we got and all we can listen to is just our experiences. And that's why there's so many times that we have to go to different meetings and we have to mix it up and we have to go around, is because the only thing that we could speak from, the only thing that I got power of, is just my own experience here and what I've gone through here in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And the more stuff that I'm able to get through because of the 12 steps and the God in my life, and being able to just be present and just be able to show up and to be accountable and just be able to like that experience is what I'm able to take to the next guy.
Like that's what it's all about. Like for me, like when I started this podcast, I was exactly what I was thinking. If I can just take this to the next person, like that hand was there for me when I needed it, and like for me to just put like what's the I forget how it goes exactly. It's like, I want the hand of A to be there for me. For that, I am responsible.
For I am responsible. Yeah.
I am responsible. When anyone anywhere reaches out for help, I want the hand of A to be there, and for that, I am responsible. Right. So like, I had all this stuff, like these people that wanted absolutely nothing in return. They wanted to help me, love me, support me when I couldn't do that for myself, and they wanted absolutely nothing in return.
Yeah.
It almost felt like it was like fake.
Well,
like,
this is the thing too, is that like, and people like me, and a lot of things I go through is that like we, because I didn't come here. I started this journey off straight out of a treatment center after 2 years, and I moved out and I started renting a room. I didn't have no driver's license. I had barely a job, and all this stuff. And people inside the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous did some things for me, and the only thing they ever said, they said that you stay, and someday you're going to be in the same position I am in to be able to help somebody. And yet all you have to do is help them. Now, today, like I'm in these positions to help people, man. And without an explanation, without anything, man, when the opportunities can, because all I'm trying to do is just be better than I was yesterday. I'm just trying to come through and come into places like this and spread a little bit of inspiration, a little bit of hope, and a little bit of like, man, like if you want what we have, you just do what we do. And like if you're having a bad day, like there's a solution for that, man. Like I'm able to come here to places like this with some experience, and that experience is all we got, man. And I like to be that experience to be something that somebody else can take that experience later on and pass that down to the next person,
One other question I was like really hoping to ask was like, what challenges do you think like you've faced trying to like rebuild your life?
Oh, everything,
with
man.
like
every challenge today still that I'm gonna tell you, for a guy like me who absolutely destroyed his life out there, mentally, physically, emotionally, I had to reconnect, and I'm talking like I'm talking to the very basics of like I wasn't a legal driver until I was 35 years old. I didn't have a bank account until I was 30 36 years old. Like I didn't know nothing about credit. I didn't know nothing about paying bills. I didn't know nothing about so when they talk about like a new way to live, like everything that I learned, my way of living, I'm being a dad, being a worker among workers, being a part of the family, like being all this stuff. Like man, I'm still learning all that.
Yeah.
The thing is that I don't. There is no hard days. The thing is that and it's my favorite. It's my favorite saying. It's not like what I know. Am I able to learn something that I think I already do know how to know? That I do
Yeah.
know. Am I able to like lay down my pride and my ego and be like, man, and ask for like a little bit of help going on in my life? And so I got to come here and like, and I learned and I'm still learning and I'm still growing about everyday challenges of life, of being a father, being in recovery, being a worker, being a business owner, like all that stuff, man, just comes in time. The thing is that it's growth and it's uncomfortable at times. And they have that thing of sitting amongst people that I never thought I'd be sitting with and around inside rooms with like I'm and like that imposter syndrome and all that stuff going on and like man and then like you and then and another thing is too is I get more into my health and I get into more like it's like a trifle like emotionally, spiritually, and physically, man, is what I work on a daily. Like I want to be a better physically, so I work out and I eat right. I want to be better spiritually, so I get down on, and I do gratitude lists and I practice that relationship with God. And mentally, I got to exercise my mind. That means I have to go to meetings and I have to I just have to go and I have to listen and I have to be present inside meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous to work, man, to let them know that like I don't got it. I'm still learning and I'm still growing here.
100%.
Yeah.
Man. So what do you think, like, since being in recovery and being sober has changed the most for you, like, when it comes to dealing with, like, stress and your emotions then?
Oh man, that now that dealing with stress and emotions, like what it is like is for me is like is instead of me walking into it and making a bigger problem than what it is, I take a step back and I just let and I take my, because what it is for me is less control. That's me managing my own life and it's more just talking about the spiritualist, like it not stuff just doesn't go. It's just being able to deal with life with dignity and grace, and being able to what, like I'm wrong, having some humility and being able to learn from that, and knowing that I'm gonna make mistakes, and that I'm new to life and I'm new to recovery, and that mistakes are going to happen, and please grow with me and don't be mad at me for being them, and like that, like it just goes like how to deal with that stuff, like that. I think a lot of it comes to like that relationship I have with my higher power and God, and being consistent and the daily practices of the program, and like just being able to like I don't take things personal. I like it's like that things happen, man, and you can either be mad about it, about how something happened, or you can just accept things and just keep on moving about life,
Yeah. I feel like that's one of the things that I struggle with today too, is like when things happen, like
Mm-hmm.
you mentioned earlier about like routine and all this stuff being critical for you, and it is for me as well. Like that's what I learned in rehab that really like keeps me grounded today, is like routine. And if I don't have it, it's like really chaotic up there.
Mm-hmm.
And to keep like those things, my routine, like, is very important for me, like the gratitude list, like all these things.
This is the thing, man. This is the killer for me, and I don't talk about it too much. A lot of people, God, and people are like 50 tap in, half out, type about this. But this is the thing: is that if I honestly and daily did a third step, if I honestly turn my will and my life over to the care of God on a daily basis, then what is the problem? The problem is me.
Mhm.
The problem isn't my financial situation, my job, my relationship, anything else in my life, my kids, or anything like that. The problem is me. And the thing is I still to this day take too much control, and I take too much credit, and I want to control it, man. And the more I'm able to just let go on a daily basis of my life, and I'm not saying to let go and I'm free floating and God is running my life. I'm saying that I can only take care of the day I'm in, and I have to be able to act out and to act in the day I'm in, and to walk with that the dignity and grace. But like it comes down to like that, man. Like you just get through it, man. That there is no hard days, there's no bad days, and like you could sit there and go into a seasonal depression or an hour depression of how things should have went or what could have happened or why is it happening to me, and then like man, like it's good or bad, man. That's just life. I can't get my life and my sobriety, mixed up, man. It's because of my sobriety that I get this life. And it's because of if I don't if I stop practicing this way of life, and sobriety, then my life seems too big and unmanageable. I got to keep up with this practice, man. Like the bigger my life is, the more I need AA. The more I need to go to meetings and I need to check in and I need to be able to shut this down up here, man. Because this is my worst end. It's me against me. It's my head. It's not what you think of me, but it's me. It's like what Garet thinks of Garet and what Garet got going on. Like Garet, I'm the hardest. I'm hard on myself and loving of others, man. Like I'm very hard, and I got to learn to love myself like I love those people around me.
I'm the same way, man. Like the thing I struggle with is like shame and guilt, like for the things that we did in our addiction, and it's like looking back, and it's like I said, I've made amends, right? Like these people 9 times out of 10 have forgiven me. God's forgiven me for my sins. I've repented, asked for forgiveness. Why can't I not forgive myself? Right? It's not what they think.
You'll never grow past that point, bro. If you can't get to that amends, man, like if you can't make those amends and let them be, and then you'll never be able to make that amends with yourself. Man.
Exactly.
And we have to, man, for that. Taking all that stuff out, man, all that stuff that we've been living with for so long, that we've been thinking that's been holding me back. Like we're getting rid of all this stuff, man. Every bad and negative and stuff that we have going on, all the blame, all the hate, all the stuff, man. And we are taking all that, man, and through the 12-step process, we are getting rid of all that, so we have enough light to let inside,
Exactly. And if there's one person that's like kind of out there that's struggling still, like in the shoes that you were in before you surrendered, what would you give them, like as one piece of advice? What would you
surrender? Surrender. If there's a person out there struggling the way I was out there, man, I didn't even know I was struggling. See, I thought my perception is that I had it all together, and I knew, man, and for the person or for the people or for the person who's out there who is, thinking, man, I can't, man. I'm just here to let you know you can. And I know that it was on March 17th of 2013, man, I walked inside yet another treatment facility, and it was then I walked in, and I got this big old giant hug from a friend of mine, and I sat down for the very first time in front of this, person in this treatment center, man, and I made the very first steps of surrender right then and there. They said, no, do you want to get sober?
And in that moment, you had a decision to make. Right?
And that's the whole thing. For that very first time, I made a decision for myself, and I got sober. And I still wake up every single day making that same decision.
Exactly. Yeah. And it is a full-time job. Like it's a daily job. Right?
That sometimes when life is squeezing you real hard and you're going through a lot, man, I don't think about a drink or a drug or nothing like that. But you have to think about, I'm grateful that I have the pressures of life that I do on my shoulders today.
And if I wasn't sober, I wouldn't have these things.
Right? If I wasn't sober, I wouldn't even be thinking like this. I got holes, I got problems in life where I never even thought I would have life. And the thing is that we just keep on going through, man, and I make a decision. It's not that decision has to come not for the kids, not for the house, not for the family, not for anybody else, but just for yourself. And if you invest in yourself, man, that the very first thing too is that you have to invest in yourself. It's I have to be better for the people around me. It's not like, everything on my outside, everything around me has to be perfect. I have to work on me, man. And it's a lifelong thing.
Yeah. Cause like, how are you going to help somebody else if you're not even like,
healed?
Exactly. And like when you said you have to do it for yourself, you can't do it for the house, the girlfriend, this, whatever, like that was one thing I had to realize, because like when I first went to rehab, it was like, I think I was doing it just to like kind of get people off my back, and then like very quickly that changed, because like you said, like I walked in there, I got a great big hug, shook hands with people. Like these people became like my family. And
do. 100%.
like they gave me a place to sleep, eat, like to be comfortable when I couldn't do it out there. You know what I mean? And like I had to make that decision for myself because like if I was gonna do it for the other people around me, like my parents or my girlfriend or like just to get them back, like what happens if like they leave? Or like what happens when like if something were to happen to these things that I am like placing my recovery depending it on, right? Like what happens when those things are not in the picture? Then your recovery is like it's not if it's not for yourself, like if you don't want it for yourself, it's not going to be like stable, right? Because those things out there, they can all nothing's what's the word permanent, right? Like the only thing that we have that's
I mean, yes,
permanent.
yeah, man, that relationship with God.
100%. Man. Is there anything else you want to kind of say to them, like to give them some hope?
Man, I just please, man, come check out, man. Give me a follow. Come check out, a podcast, man. And I just love, man. It's just if you want what we have, you do what we do, man. But my life today is a full example of what the 12, recovery does, man. I'm living proof that no matter how far down the scale you have lived or gone, no house or no house, job or no job, or and all that stuff. That I'm living proof that, man. If you want something that's worth living for, man, you just stay here in the rooms of in recovery. So thank you.
Thanks for coming on, bro. I really appreciate you coming on.
Happy with that? Yeah.
Sweet, bro. All right, everybody.
Ready?